Who are we if we can't protect them? We have to protect them.
In some of my recent reviews, I've been speaking about heavy handed character development, and I was trying to think of a low budget movie that was a very well developed character set and kind of really put things together in such a way that I really can't cast stones at the characters. And one that's very close to that level is A Quiet Place. So, the first of two movies that were directed by John Krasinski, starring both John Krasinski and Emily Blunt, portray a couple who are married and they have two children, a son and daughter. Um, Very quickly on, you discover that there was a third child, spoilers ahead, and that things are not what they seem. Plain and simple, the world as we know it has changed drastically, and some sort of space based creatures or something came out and have basically eliminated human resistance. Only limited groups of people are left. And the way the movie kind of does it is it's a time travel movie in a weird way because it has these flashbacks that are long drawn out, and especially the first one, you don't realize it's basically a long intro flashback. So it shows the loss of the third youngest child, the youngest of their children, and also it builds a lot of the characters' regrets and later on their motivations for the rest of the movie in that introduction, where the child activates a noisy device, the creatures react to the noisy device, and then unfortunately the child is taken. There is a very interesting plot there focuses on each one of the members of the family coming to terms with this loss, the greater loss of most of society and the world they knew, and also trying to overcome the weaknesses of each one of the family members. The mother, Emily Blunt's character, attempting to replace the child, I would suggest, with a new child. The father attempting to hold the family together and assist with the pregnancy and taking care of all the children, as well as trying to constantly develop new roadways, basically, that they can walk through these sandy locations to continue to forage for supplies, keep them moving on, and also try to fix his daughter's deficiency where she cannot hear. She can only read through sign language and enunciation of words that she can see you mouth the words to understand what you're saying. Which he obviously feels that she could be injured with because she cannot hear that she's making a noise, such as walking on the steps to a basement is one of the examples they use in the movie. The movie is rather small scale and it's very simplistic. A lot of times, the crew over at Red Letter Media will make comments about shooting in the woods, as in it's a cheap place to shoot a movie. But I never felt that the $17 million budgeted movie was that deficient. I never felt in many cases that the limited CGI was welcome. The fact they didn't constantly show the creatures off that were bad creatures was a good thing, especially with the scale and the size of the number of people left was extremely small. And I would say that the 90-minute runtime moves by very, very quickly. So, in a movie like this, where there's a constant existential threat that you are still trying to uncover alongside the other characters. You're literally you kind of feel like you're traveling along with them and you're rooting for them the entire time. It's very critical that you like the characters and having them have this redemption arc where they lost the one child and trying to build their lives back up and strengthen the family even more is really an interesting angle and very smart move by the storyline. The son and daughter constantly trying to overcome their deficiencies and participate in the family, and also have their own, a coming of age, teenage year type situations, especially the daughter having a rebellion about the needs at home and feeling like she's kind of penned in and trapped under the obligations that she didn't sign up for in her eyes, was very welcome. At the same time, having this kind of switch that's flipped where every single member of the family understands their role when the emergency happens and the plot demands it was very welcome, and it felt rewarded. It felt like these characters are real. These characters have learned these skill sets over the past year plus timeline where they became like had started developing their expertise in different things, but they're not. None of them were the greatest, baddest action hero ever, and that's a good thing. They were felt very real, lived in, with weaknesses that could be exploited by the creatures, and also the creatures themselves, as they got to know them, had their own problems. So I thought it was a very well put together movie. There are some limitations to the movie. If you start pointing out that if there's so many people gone, there'd be a lot more resources available, including weapons to use against the creatures. Why wasn't there traps that they were used, or some other creative methodologies, or large amounts of fuel that's no longer needed being used to, well, basically create like traps that would lure them in and blow them up, like at the end of the movie World War Z or something. I mean, if you can nitpick this type of story, and if this is the type of story you're looking for, and that type of filled in every little angle, this movie ain't for you. So if you're looking though for a good character development story with a time travel angle, and a redemption arc, I would argue give it a shot. It is not something that's very family friendly. There is a little decent little bit of violence in it. It's not particularly bad, but it is there. It is kind of something where I would suggest it's more of an adult movie due to just the violence and the angles that it covers. But it does them very gracefully, and I did appreciate a lot of the things that it does not go super in depth about. It's almost like in like the realm of Looper, where it encourages you to simply go along for the ride, don't ask too many questions because you could pick it apart, and appreciate the cleverness of the story where that comes up. So if you got 90 minutes, it's well worth it. This movie was very good. Watched it on my 4K Blu-ray of it. The sound design is relatively decent. It felt like a lot of the action scenes were really pumped up. And I will say, though, that some of the quieter parts of A Quiet Place, dare I say it, were maybe a little lacking in the sound design, especially in the 3D sound work. It's a movie where there's portions of the movie where you're simply hearing the light footsteps of the character trying to hide or something like that. And that's not ideal to be pumping music through, coursing the music through where you can't hear where the creature is, or you can't really, it kind of takes you out of it a little bit, because they seem to really love their score. But when the action does hit, the score and the way they handled it on the uncompressed 4K Blu-ray was very welcome. So that's all I got on this one. Thank you for stopping by.